Hey everybody, welcome to Week 8 Combating Consensus here on Check Down Chatter. For those of you that are new to the segment, the idea is we find 3 games every week where the public opinion is on the wrong side of the ledger, where we've got general public consensus backing one team really strongly over the other, and where I think that is poorly placed. Pick those 3 games, try to make the best of them, and see if we can win some games. Last week, we didn't. We were 0-3, backing the Buccaneers, the Redskins, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, 2 of those games were pretty close, in fairness. We had the Bucs missing a late touchdown by going out of bounds, also some other opportunities left on the field, losing to the Saints in a game that was pretty close all along. We had the Redskins thinking they won it, convincing me and probably Robert Griffin and the rest of the team that they had it done until Eli Manning and the New York Giants pulled out some last-minute heroics. And then we had the Bengals, who pretty much flopped against a division rival at home. It's unfortunate. We were 0-3 last week, brings the season total to 7-8. But of course, when we're going against public opinion, this is a win some, you lose some proposition, so I'm okay with that. We're going to try to build back into the positive column this week, and I think I have 3 games that are going to help us do that. We're going to start by looking at those games, and I want to start with the Seahawks. We've got Seattle getting 56% of the public vote going into Detroit, taking on the Lions. Now, it's easy to see why, at first blush, someone's just checking off a game. They're going to pick the Seahawks in this one. Everyone in America just watched the Detroit Lions post a pretty ugly performance against the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. It was flat. It wasn't good. 7 points in any game is unimpressive no matter how strong the opposing defense is. But if you look a little bit deeper than that at that game and then at this week's contest, I think you've got to like some things that you saw from the Lions. Their defense as well played pretty well. It was just that the offense couldn't capitalize in a game where they held the Bears to 13 points, just 1 offensive touchdown. Did pretty well against Jay Cutler, against Matt Forte as well. Showed some good things in the secondary and led us to believe that maybe this defense can help this team win a few games, which is, I don't think, what we anticipated coming into the season, certainly not in the secondary. Now, this week they get Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks, who travel pretty poorly. He's a rookie quarterback. He's got a great home field advantage, and I don't think that Wilson and the rest of the team really have adjusted to going on the road that well yet. In fact, they are the 32nd ranked, last in the league passing offense on the road. They come into Detroit facing a defense again that's coming off a pretty nice looking game against Jay Cutler and the Bears, and I think they're going to have some problems. Now, of interest, the Seahawks, in compiling that record, have faced 4 pretty strong defenses: the Cardinals, the Rams, the 49ers, and the Carolina Panthers, all of them with pretty decent secondaries, pretty good at limiting opposing quarterbacks anyhow, particularly the NFC West opponents, but it's nothing that should put you at the bottom of the league. Clearly, Wilson doesn't travel so well, neither do the Seahawks. They're coming across 3 time zones now to take on the Detroit Lions at home, and it's worth noting, even though they've only had 2 games at home, that the Lions actually have the number 1 home passing defense. So we've got 32 versus 1 this week. That's reason enough for me to jump behind the Lions, to think that we're not going to see a lot out of Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. Again, I mentioned 3 time zones is never what you want to see. Seattle going across the country to play Detroit. We don't like when Western teams have to go that way. The time zone screws a few things up with the body clock, and I think they might start by coming out flat in this one. Now, they played pretty well on the road against Carolina, but I think despite Matt Stafford's struggles lately, the Lions are a different beast at home than the Panthers. There's another point I'd like to make. It's about the Twitter feud between Richard Sherman and Calvin Johnson. Really what this is just Sherman trying to make a name for himself, kind of like he did chirping Tom Brady after the Seahawks victory over the Patriots. But I can't fault him for that, but I don't think it was a wise move. Calvin Johnson's going to use that as motivation. He said as much in an interview this week, and while his season hasn't been as bad as everyone's making it out to be, he's coming off a pretty weak performance against Charles Tillman. He's already motivated to go out and prove people wrong, and then he's got Optimus Prime, Richard Sherman, calling him out. Not a great idea to wake the sleeping beast, I don't think. I think that we might see Calvin Johnson really turn it on. We might see Matt Stafford look his way more often than not, and we could see a big game out of the two of them, and I think that'll be enough to bury the Seahawks offense, who is going to struggle, as I said, on the road. So that gives us the Lions over the Seahawks. I want to move right in now to an AFC matchup. In the East, we've got the Dolphins going on the road to take on the Jets. Now, New York has improved lately. They've played 2 games against tough opponents and kept it close, which I guess is supposed to be a bonus point, and kind of it is. It's nice to see, but they've lost. They lost to the Pats despite keeping it close, and of course they lost by less than we all thought against the Texans on Monday Night Football, and that has everybody excited. So you got public opinion backing the Jets, but that's 2 losses. Are they that good a team? I don't think so. The Dolphins are coming off rest. They've had a bye week. We're going to see them make some adjustments, I think, and have 2 weeks to prepare for a team that they already know a little bit about because they play in the division and they've seen them once this year. So I think that pushes things in the Dolphins' favor. We have to remember, too, that although this game was in Florida, Miami had them beat. Dan Carpenter missed 2 field goals that could have won the game, and he's usually pretty steady-footed, so I don't think that that's a benefit that the Jets are going to get every week. I don't think it's something that they're going to see this week against the Dolphins. Worth mentioning that their secondary has played pretty well despite the loss of Darrelle Revis. Cromartie's really stepped up his game, and he's kind of taken over that role of shadowing and shutting down the number 1 receiver for opponents. He's performed it well, but what's interesting is that might have less of an impact this week for the Jets against the Dolphins because they're a kind of team, frankly, because of their lack of a number 1 guy, that spreads it around a bit. So you take Brian Hartline away. Not really as crucial as taking Brandon Marshall out of the game for the Bears or something of that nature. They're going to spread it around anyway, so we'll get Bess a few targets, we'll get Anthony Fasano maybe getting a few looks, and I don't think it affects the Dolphins as much as it affects some other teams. Then there is their run defense that really struggled with Reggie Bush the last time these 2 teams faced each other. Now, Bush hasn't really got it going since then. He's been hurt, of course, in that game, and he kind of came out hobbled. Hasn't posted the strong performances that he was before that game, but now he's got a week off, should be feeling pretty healthy, and he's motivated, as we've seen this week with the whole hot sauce back and forth and some of the comments that we've seen. So I think Bush is ready to turn it around, both in terms of his health, his motivation, and then also in terms of the matchup that he took advantage of to the tune of 6.1 yards per carry, over 10 carries before getting hurt against the Jets. I think he's got them figured out. I think that they know how Tony Sperano coaches things on offense as well. So I think that the Dolphins have the edge in this game. Certainly I like Reggie Bush better than I like Sean Green. Again, he's had a couple of nice performances in recent weeks, so people are ready to get behind him. But he's got no Bilal Powell. We've seen issues with Joe McKnight. He might not be ready to suit up either. So Green is a one-man show this week, and he's just not that exciting of a running back, even when he's performing well. He gets a Dolphins defense now that's 3rd in the league. They allow just 3.3 yards per carry. I think they're really going to be able to shut him down. What that means is it's going to force Mark Sanchez to beat them. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that. I'll get into it in a second. A couple things before I do. Worth noting that the Dolphins did lose that game, despite my saying that maybe they were in a position to win it. They lost. They're 0-1 in the season series, but they haven't been swept by the Jets since 2007. So they've been splitting it pretty well, and I think that they have a chance, trending suggests, to earn the split in this one. We've also got to look at one important stat, and it's the 3rd down conversions numbers. Specifically on defense, I want to take a look. The Jets aren't doing very well this season. Part of it has to do with the injuries that they're dealing with on the defensive side of the ball, but they're near the bottom of the league in terms of getting off the field on 3rd down, somewhere around 46%. The Dolphins, number 1 defensive unit in the league in stopping opponents on 3rd down. They're allowing just 25% conversions this year. That's a gap of 20%. It's very significant, and I think that a lot of games come down to turnovers and 3rd down percentage, and I think that the Dolphins clearly have the edge here. I think that's going to go a long way in getting them the win. Last thing I want to talk about, it might not really be football related on the surface, but I think it is going to have an impact on this game. Mark Sanchez lost his cougar this week. That's right. He's without Eva Longoria. They split up about 4 days ago. I don't care. You don't care. Very few people do, probably within the locker room as well. But Mark Sanchez cares. Word I'm hearing on the radio is that he is devastated this week. He's really letting this affect him. It's inside his head. We know that Sanchez has some good games and some bad games. He looks pretty good when he's good, but he looks awful when he's bad. And I think we're in line for an awful week this week. If he's not focused, if he's distracted, if he's distraught, then Sanchez might come out flat. And particularly if Sean Green's not able to get it going on the ground, I don't think that we're going to see a lot of offense out of the Jets. And I don't like them to win against the Dolphins because of that. He's without his cougar. That means he's without his roar. I think we're going to see a lackluster performance from Sanchez. Again, more whimper than roar this week. Last game, I want to look at the Falcons, the 6-0 Falcons, going into Philadelphia to take on the Eagles at the Link. It's Vegas, baby. We got Vegas really liking the Eagles as the favorite in this game. And frankly, the odds makers know a little bit more than public consensus. Now, I'm not saying I'm picking every game I pick based on the spread, but we see 71% of people picking the money line, yet Vegas is paying over 2-1, and they're not in the business of losing money. So just something to think about. Another thing to think about is something that, if you've been listening at all this week, you've heard 100 times. Andy Reid, Philadelphia Eagles, 13-0 coming off a bye. That's not a fluke stat. That's 13 consecutive wins for this guy as head coach of the Eagles after a bye week. And it's because I'm hearing that he's one of the more effective game planners or adjustment makers during that bye week. A lot of teams use the bye to rest and certainly to make adjustments for the next team. But Reid and the Eagles use the time to really think critically about the mistakes that they've made in the first half of the season and how they can correct those moving forward. 13-0 is a big stat. Now, so is 6-0, of course, and that's where the Falcons are sitting right now. But we're going to talk about why I don't like that to continue forever in a bit. The big switch that they made during the bye week was Juan Castillo to Todd Bowles. I'm not ready to say that that's going to be the difference in this game. In fact, I'm not so sure I'm behind the decision right now. I haven't been a big fan of Castillo, but they had a top 10 scoring defense with him in there. I don't think defense was their biggest problem, so I'm a little surprised at the move. With that said, I don't think that the move to Bowles hurts them any this week either. If they're a little more unpredictable in their scheming, I think that's a plus. And they've still got the talent on D to make things work, so I'm not too stressed about it. I don't think it's a game changer either. What I do think is their biggest problem, of course, has been the turnovers, and they'll address that during the bye week. They kind of did the same thing last year. Coming out of the bye, LaShawn McCoy had 30 carries, 32 touches, 200 yards, and 2 scores in their first game off the bye. They made a concerted effort to get him the ball, and I think they're going to do the same thing this week. Number one, because their biggest issue has been turnovers, specifically those from quarterback Michael Vick. So they're going to take a look at McCoy, try to put the ball in his hands, get him moving again as well. They're going to want to limit the effect that the weather has on this game, and there is a weather system, as we all know, heading into the area this weekend. Probably not going to have a big impact in terms of postponing or canceling games, but it is going to present some weather in Philadelphia. We'll see a little bit of rain and a lot of wind this week. That means that the teams are going to want to run the ball, keep it on the ground. I think McCoy is well suited to do that against the Falcons. Atlanta, they're giving up 5.2 yards per carry. I've been ripping on the Saints for their 5.0 yard per carry, which is now 4.9. But Atlanta's posting a worse number against the run this year. LaShawn McCoy's in a great position to take advantage of that, and I think he gives the Eagles a big edge over the Falcons with Michael Turner this week. I said we come back to Atlanta's record, and hey, they're 6-0, and I know picking against a 6-0 team, especially when consensus backs them, probably not that smart of a thing to do. We're going out on a limb here, but in fairness, those 6 wins have come against inferior opponents. They haven't beaten an opponent yet with a record over 500. Of course, that's because they haven't faced one, and we can't fault them for that. But I'm not treating this 6-0 record as much as I would if they had beaten, say, the Giants, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Texans to get here. They haven't done that. And in particular, in recent weeks, they've just been squeaking by. And I think this week, on the road, in a hostile environment, against Andy Reid with the bye behind him, things are stacked against them. That streak's got to come to an end. I'm picking it to end this week. So, that's 3 picks coming at you in 15 minutes. Remember that we like Seattle to lose to Detroit, despite public consensus on them. We like the Jets again to lose to the Dolphins at home. And then we like the Eagles to hold serve on their home court against the Atlanta Falcons this week. I think you can take that to the bank. Do with it what you will. Check with me on Monday, Tuesday, and we'll see how we did. Thanks a lot.